What if the products in your home and even the food on your plate was quietly sabotaging your health in ways you didn't even imagine? Welcome to the Green Living Now podcast, where we cut through the noise and help you live cleaner, healthier, and more consciously without the overwhelm. I'm Amy Todisco, Green Living mentor, organic farmer, speaker, and holistic health advocate, with over 30 years of experience helping people detox their lives one step at a time. Each week, I bring you powerful conversations, surprising truths, and actionable tips to help you ditch the toxins, embrace sustainable living, and feel your best naturally. Have you ever wondered if there's a way to train your brain to be more focused, more confident, and even happier? In today's episode of the Green Living Now podcast, I am joined by Morry Zelcovitch, who is a brainwave entrainment expert whose journey from deep depression to actual happiness led him to create tools that are helping people around the world. We're diving into how sound frequencies can actually shift your brain chemistry and what that means for mental clarity, emotional balance, and overall well-being. It's a fascinating conversation that you won't want to miss. Hello, Morry Zelcovitch. Welcome to the Green Living Now podcast.
Well, thanks for having me, Amy. I appreciate the opportunity to share some of my, let's call them unique views with your
Oh, for
audience
sure. And expertise too, I would add.
and expertise. Yes.
Right. So you and I know each other a little bit just from a variety of networking events that we've been in. So I know that you do brain entrainment stuff. So why don't you explain it to the listeners exactly what it is you do?
Sure. So, as Amy said, my name is Morry Zelcovitch, and I'm the brainwave entrainment expert. What I do is I create files, basically using MP3s and MP4s, and I create these video and audio files that alter your brain's activity. So most of us have heard of things like alpha, beta, theta, delta, gamma.
Sure.
All those really mean is how many times a neuron, which is one of your brain cells, pulses on and off. So it doesn't pulse like, a heart pulses. It pulses like someone standing at a light switch and turning it on and off and on and off. It's like an electric burst. Now, depending on the region of the brain where that neuron is located and how many times it turns on and off in a second, that dictates whether it's an alpha, theta, beta, delta. But what really matters is that dictates the kind of chemistry it releases. Things like neurotransmitters, endorphins.
So let me see if I understand this. So when you go from what's the first stage, alpha?
Well, there's no such thing as really a first stage.
Oh, there isn't.
It,
So it's not like you go from completely conscious all the way down to theta or something like that. It doesn't work that way.
no, we actually experience all brainwave states at the same time all the time. It's
Oh,
just
no
there's
kidding.
different states that are dominant or tend to be dominant. And that's what
Oh,
we go for with my work. We hope to elicit a dominant response. So dominance would be like if you have 10 neurons, maybe 7 or 8 of them are pulsing the way you want them to,
okay.
and the other 2 are doing whatever the hell they want to do. So,
Oh, wow. Okay. So if somebody's meditating, then that's just strengthening whatever that wave is that they're,
well,
how
you
can I
know,
explain that?
you'll get people who don't know what they're talking about, and I hope I'm not insulting anyone here, but hopefully I'll be educating them so that they don't say things as if it's the truth when it
Okay.
isn't. But a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm in Delta," or "I'm in," well, usually they won't say Delta.
Theta, I've heard people talking about too.
They're probably wrong unless they've actually been hooked up multiple times to an electroencephalogram, EEG, the
Interesting.
things with the
Okay.
little probes that go on the forehead and the head.
Yeah.
If they've been, recorded multiple times and they show a dominance in theta, then you can trust what they're saying. But most of these people are just saying based on what they've read. Oh,
Interesting.
meditation puts you into theta, or
Okay.
meditation puts you
So,
in alpha.
and so if let's say they were hooked up to a machine and it did show that they were in theta, is it just a temporary moment that they're there when they're meditating and then they're back to multiple?
So again, it's unlikely that they're actually in theta, because in theta sounds like that's all they're in.
Okay. As
All of
opposed
this
to all of them
interactive
working
in
at
the
once.
brain all the time. We're talking about a dominant state. And if you look at most brain scans, when they're using it in the topography, because all they can really measure is the top layer of the brain or the cortical layer,
Okay.
is you see these colors lighting up and disappearing and lighting up and disappearing. The colors are randomly assigned to represent delta, theta, alpha,
Oh,
beta, gamma, that kind of thing. But it's rare when you get over a large period of time, a dominance into one area or another.
hmm,
No, it's just how it's configured to show. So the way it shows doesn't influence anything.
okay.
It's just showing, the activity or
Okay.
the general activity. So even when you're sleeping, people think delta is sleep. Well, actually, delta is alpha, theta, beta, gamma. I mean, it's all of the stages. It's just they're talking about the circadian rhythm, which
Okay.
would be how long are you in a dominant state. Using the technology that I've created, we can help inspire the brain to follow and go into a dominant state for a longer period of time, which takes us back to how our brains are designed to function. Because imagine you're in a car and I have the same car you have, but you wash your car once a month. I never wash my car. You change the oil. I never change the oil. You have alternator, fluid, and you have all these different fluids. Everything's topped up. Everything's fresh. For me, it's all stale. It's all half empty or three quarters empty or even empty period. Which
Okay.
car is likely to run the best?
Mine.
Yeah, of course.
Like the human
And it's the
body,
same thing
right?
with the brain. Well, it's the same thing with the body and the brain.
Right,
You
right. Oh,
topped off.
fascinating.
Basically, these systems help people to get into natural states for longer periods of time,
Okay.
which naturally releases more neurotransmitters and other things like endorphins and hormones. And those levels are kind of like topped off. All of a sudden, my car starts running like your car.
So, how did you get into this?
I spent the first 40 years of my life wanting to be dead with multiple suicide attempts. Oh, don't do that. I'm grateful for all of it.
No, I heard you say this once at a networking. I thought, "Oh my gosh, that is so powerful." Okay, but so you're this is just information that you're sharing instead of it doesn't have that
Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah. There's no emotion tied to
No,
it.
I agree. I know. It's
Obviously over it.
amazing. Okay.
Yeah. So I used to wake up every single morning and I'd stand up on my bed and draw my curtains, cross my fingers, and hope I would see mushroom clouds. Because if I saw mushroom clouds, it meant I didn't have to see another day. And of course, I'd get up and I would never see mushroom clouds and I'd get even more depressed.
Sure.
I had an affirmational statement that I used all the time. I don't even know how many, it feels like I've said it millions of times.
Yeah.
Life is a disease for which there is no cure but death.
Oof, I've heard that one before.
Yeah. So that was my life for 40 years.
So
I would
so
go
you
from
your earliest.
depressed, super depressed.
Right, and the earliest memory you have of feeling that way is what?
My earliest memory.
Like age 3, 4, 5, something like
Oh, I
that?
don't know. I don't have a memory of being a child at
Oh,
all. There's one memory where I was riding home in a small yellow bus, like school bus, and
right.
my elbow was bleeding, and a kid gave me a Hershey bar wrapper to put there. That's about the only memory I have.
From your whole childhood.
Yeah.
My goodness. And
Well,
so
my childhood was hell on earth. Most of my life was hell on earth.
most of your life was hell on earth, and this was from outside sources, I'm assuming, not just from within?
No, it was from, I mean, judging by my experience and me getting better using this technology,
Right.
I would have to assume that it was neurochemical.
Oh, okay,
Because
so it's not like you experienced extreme abuse and all kinds of
no,
awful
my
stuff.
parents, they hit me, but back then everybody got hit. And
Right,
frankly,
right.
I deserved it. So,
My goodness. Okay, so this was
yeah,
all the way your brain was functioning. That
I would have to assume,
well,
I
s
went to
based
see,
on your improvement, right?
well, yeah, I tried the usual things. I tried drugs, alcohol, addictions of other types as
Yeah,
well. And those only made things worse. I
yeah.
tried doctors. I don't think they believed me because they said, well, there's not much we can do for you and we think you're coping
Mm,
well. I always found it
mhm.
interesting that their
And even
concept of coping
therapists,
well.
nobody was able to
No,
help.
no, they all thought I was kidding, I guess, because no one ever helped me.
Goodness, or they just
And then
didn't
I saw like,
understand. Yeah,
no, I mean, they just thought I was faking it, I think. I think
really?
they thought it was a cry for attention as opposed to anything else. And back then, they didn't give pills for depression or anything
Right,
anyway.
right. And so, what was the turning point?
I don't think you can say there was a turning
Or there
point.
wasn't a one turning point?
No, it was a series of things that happened. I mean, I feel like I'm 1,000 years old because when I
I
was
know that
depressed,
feeling.
time crawled, right?
Yeah.
Time
Yeah.
crawls when you're not having fun. Just being at an event or at a dinner and you don't want to be around the people you're around, that dinner
Mhm.
seems to take forever.
Yeah.
Well, my life seemed to take forever. And then I was sitting around a campfire. Everybody else had passed out. I don't know how I had friends, but I did.
Huh.
And I was at a campsite. And back then I was smoking a ton of drugs. And when I was sitting around the fire, I had to smoke a big fat joint every night just to get to sleep because
Mhm.
otherwise my mind was racing all the time about how
Right.
crappy my life was and everything else. So everybody else went to sleep. I was sitting around the fire and smoking a big fat joint that should have taken me about half an hour to smoke.
Okay.
So you can imagine it was a pretty big joint. And when I finished the joint, I figured it was about half an hour and it was about 4 or 5 hours.
Oh my
And that
word.
was the first time in my life that time went quickly. So it scared me in the beginning, but then I kind of made the relationship to the crackling of the wood had something to do with putting me in a different state where for the first time in my life, time actually flew as opposed to crawling. And when I got back, I went to what I call the paper internet, which is, of course, a library,
Yep.
because
Yep.
again, they didn't have the internet when I was there. And I started reading neurology journals and it's learning about neurochemical reactions and how they affect behavior and psychology. And I took psychology in school and,
Me too.
EMDR, I tried all these different techniques. None of them worked.
None of
But
those work.
nothing worked. Nothing
Okay.
worked. I tried hypnosis. I tried meditation. I tried probably tens of hundreds of doctors and techniques. Think about it, 40 years of research. You can bet I
It
pretty much
won't
tried, well, I tried everything I
brain.
found. There's
Right.
always more, but everything I found, nothing
Right.
helped until I found brainwave entrainment. And by the time I had been doing my research for decades, and then I came across brainwave entrainment, it seemed like the cure for me.
Okay.
And when I tried it, it didn't do anything. And then I tried a different brand and it didn't do anything. I tried a different brand and it didn't do anything. But for whatever reason, I thought maybe I need to change it because something I noticed about it was it never changed. To me, it's natural for things to change. I mean, I
Yeah.
used to have a full head of hair,
Right.
folks. By the way, I'm not wearing the hat to cover up I'm balding. I'm wearing it so it doesn't shine.
Oh, so
That's
you
why.
don't get the light shining on you.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly.
Okay.
Well, actually, so the people looking don't see the glare.
Oh,
Rear view mirror.
okay.
So when I realized that, I started using all the information, all the current understanding I was developing from my education and from understanding behavior and neurobiology, neurophysics. I was even studying quantum physics at the time because quantum physics has
Nice.
a whole lot to do with how we perceive the world around us.
Yeah.
And I ended up making changes to the technology and I created my first recording. And when eventually I tried my first recording, I noticed two massive changes within the first half hour. The first change was that when it didn't work, because it felt like half an hour, I heard everything I thought that I had put into the recording, and I
Mhm.
didn't feel any different. And I thought to myself, oh crap, my last hope is gone. I'm
Oh,
going to live like in misery for the rest of my life. There's no other options. Except the problem was with that thinking was that one voice came back to me right after I thought that and said, well, did you expect 40 years of hell to go away with one 30-minute recording? And I said to myself, yeah, you're right. And I didn't go into a super depression. Normally, I would have gone into what I call a super depression, which is 3 to 6 weeks of even worse
God.
than pitch blackness. I also noticed 5 minutes after it ended that the voices, oh, by the way, I didn't mention I have voices, hundreds of thousands of voices at the same time.
Oh
Imagine
my
you're in a
God.
rock concert or a music concert or a sporting event at intermission, and everybody in the audience is talking. That's what I
That
heard
is
every waking second.
beyond overwhelming. I
Well,
don't even know how you function.
when it's all you know, you deal with it, right?
I guess. I guess.
Yeah.
Wow. And at what point did you realize that that was not what everybody else was doing or
I
feeling?
thought for a long time that everybody else had the same issues I had, which is why I never told
Oh.
anybody.
Oh my
I
God.
thought everybody was going through what I was going through because I was faking laughing and I was faking having a good time.
Just to kind of get along in society.
Yeah. I mean,
No.
I would date 3 women in a day on a regular basis just to distract myself and away from how crappy I feel.
Oh my gosh. I
I
can't
feel
even.
bad for them. It's worse for them because I wasn't really there,
Yeah. And did they notice that and pick up on it?
probably because I
Yeah.
had a lot of relationships,
Yeah. So
and they could see I wasn't all, I mean,
you weren't
I think
present
I was
really.
decent looking when I was younger. So that would get me the date,
Yeah.
but I didn't get a lot of second or third dates. So
Yeah. 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 So one thing that I'm curious about is what made you stick with brain entrainment? Like, was there some sort of intuitive knowing that this was going to lead to what you needed and you just needed to tweak it?
well, it was my research that made me
Okay, so
take
through
this.
your
See,
research, you started to see
yeah.
that it was doing things for other people that were
Well,
similar?
no.
No.
Through the research, I started to see that it was having neurological effects and neurochemical effects, and I was relating it to my belief system. By the way, I don't believe anything anymore. I don't
Nothing.
believe in
You have no beliefs.
or any of it. No, it makes me stop thinking. I don't like not thinking.
Okay.
So when I found that it just seemed logically to tick all the boxes, cross
Okay.
all the T's, dot all the I's. But when it didn't, instead of me getting down about it, I kind of thought, well, maybe this is why I've been depressed for 40 years. Maybe I was supposed to come across this thing and evolve it, take it to the next step.
That's so cool. So, okay, so you started to evolve and brain entrainment. Can you define that for the listeners? Because I'm not sure
Sure.
everyone knows what that means.
So you may not know what it means, but you know what it is.
Okay.
And I can prove that to you right now.
Sure.
So, Amy, I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to anyone else.
Yes,
So tell me, have you ever listened to music in your life?
absolutely.
Okay, you're answering the question perfect for me so far. Have you ever found yourself tapping your toes or bopping your head or
All the
swaying your body
time.
without really thinking about it?
Hmm.
That's entrainment. Your body, your so you put on a pair of ordinary over-the-ear stereo headphones,
Yeah.
or I guess I don't have them handy, or some bone conduction headphones. And what that does is it presents a pulse rate. I mean, I'm being very generalized here. My
Sure.
work is far more advanced than just the pulse rate.
Right.
But in basic terms, it has this pulse rate. And as it pulses on and off, on and off, on and off, so many times a second,
Hmm.
the brain, your neurons, your brain cells start acting like your feet, your head, your body when they're listening to music. They start firing in unison with the pulses, as long as it's within an appropriate range.
Right.
And as that happens, neurochemistry gets released. So in my view, when we were back living in our cave person days, we were much better off. We didn't have these stupid things. We didn't have television. We didn't have
Right.
knowledge of life and death. We
Right.
didn't have a lot of beliefs. We didn't have political strife. We didn't have financial strife. We didn't have taxes. I mean, so many
Right.
things we didn't have that we have today that just don't allow us to function naturally.
Yeah.
I'm assuming when we were in danger, certain neurochemistry would kick in and we would get afraid and we would protect ourselves. But as soon as the danger ended, we would come back to our normal state.
Which is
We'd
more
wake up.
like animals, right?
I would expect so, although I
My
haven't talked.
understanding anyways, like if an animal
Yeah.
experiences an extreme stress, they kind of do something to shake it out of their body, and then they can kind of go back to equilibrium, although
Yeah, they
it
avoid,
depends
they
on the
get,
animal.
when the stressor is gone, it's gone. And then they're not screwed up anymore. Humans, we're always looking over our shoulder for the next
Yeah.
thing. So that's the whole point. So when we are like that, our brains are more stable. It's reasonable to assume anyway that our brains are more stable. I obviously haven't hooked up an EEG to someone 5,000 years ago or 100,000 years
Nor
ago,
could you.
nor could I. But the thing is, it's reasonable to assume these things, which would be saying that the brain is designed to run on a certain amount of neurochemistry to stay healthy and happy and content. We don't get that because, as I alluded to before, when you put on a brain scan and you see it, it's usually just lighting up for a second and then gone, half a second and gone, lighting up for half. So every time it lights up, that associated chemistry gets released. But imagine 100,000 years ago when that chemistry is being released, if it's being released for 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time. There are more stable brain rates because there's less things to screw it up. And we're designed to run on those fuel levels, on those, gasoline levels, on that washer fluid level. And we're not getting the right levels of neurotransmitters because we're not living the way we're supposed to be living. We're living under too much stress, too much anxiety, too much fear.
Right. And so in our modern life, do you think we have more neural connections versus the early
No,
humans?
I mean, brains evolve over time, like we evolve over time, but the brain is essentially still the brain.
Okay.
I mean, it does everything it did
So
then.
regardless of how simple life was back in those days versus what we're experiencing today, what would you
Well, we have
expect
too
to
many
see be different?
distractions. Well, the major difference would be that they were able to maintain, or it's reasonable to assume, because that's what I'm
Right.
doing. It's
Yeah.
reasonable to assume that they were able to maintain dominant brain states for far longer periods of time, meaning they're releasing more natural neural chemistry, which is what the brain was designed to do
I see.
and designed to run on. Now we have so many interactions and so many distractions and so much stress and so much anxiety and too many things to think about and all this and
Right.
all that, that we don't have an opportunity for our brain to light up and stay lit up for 5
Mm.
and 15, 20 minutes. It's lit up for a fifth of a second, for a quarter
Mhm.
of it. We're not getting the neural chemistry. This is my theory. This is my concept. This is not fact. Keep in mind
Right.
that I don't believe in truth and I don't believe in fact because they close my mind. When I believed in truth and fact, my life was a misery. I don't believe in truth or fact now. That means when you talk, even if I don't agree with you, I learn from you.
That's a good
I
perspective,
love that.
actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that too. And actually, I've been adopting that more myself because I think when I was younger, I was probably a little more rigid in my thinking. And as I've gotten older, I've started to consider alternative viewpoints. And instead of shutting somebody off thinking in my brain, oh, that person's stupid, or I totally disagree with them. Now I'm thinking, well, let me see if I can understand where they're coming from at least. I may not agree
See,
perfectly.
that's healthy. That's
Yeah.
healthy. My view goes a little more esoteric than that.
Okay.
My view says that we all exist in our own universe.
I think that's
And
true.
right now, you're in my universe and rubbing up against each other.
Yeah.
And we're in communication. But if we're all in a different universe, you and I can walk down the same street, have a conversation, get interviewed, and for
Mhm.
what we notice. And it would sound like we're in two different cities.
Oh my gosh, and
You
I
notice
know
it's
they've
different. I notice.
yeah, they've documented that with crime scenes, right? With different witnesses seeing
Sure.
completely different situations than what
Yeah, not just crime scenes, airplane crashes, all kinds of things.
oh my gosh. Well,
So
probably
my
anything.
view is,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say anything, I guess, can be I mean, we certainly see it in politics, right? I mean, I'm always thinking to myself, "God, I'm on a totally different planet than that person."
But you are literally, you're in a totally
Yeah,
different,
I think you're
in my
right.
current
Right,
understanding.
right.
It's
So far,
right.
I would agree.
There you go. You see, I don't even know that I'm right. It's just my
Right.
current understanding. That's
Yeah,
all.
no, that's a good way
So
of looking at it.
well, the
So
nice thing of looking at it that way, sorry, but the nice thing
okay.
about looking at it that way is I used to wait for you to be quiet so I could tell you how wrong you are. Now, because I understand you live in a different universe, I don't do that anymore. I think you're always right and I'm never wrong because whatever quantum physics says, nothing exists until it's observed. Well, when we observe something, we give it meaning too. So you
Yes.
give it a different meaning, I give it a different meaning. Now there's two things, even though you and I are only seeing one, because I'm only seeing what my universe is letting me see. You
Right,
only see what your universe is letting you to see. It
right.
makes my life so much better because now I don't judge people anymore. I'm not
Oh,
worried
that's
about
so
being wrong or
interesting.
them being wrong.
Wow.
Everybody's right all the time.
In their own universe, or at least with their level
That's
of
because
understanding at that moment.
we all live in our own universe. So
That's
yeah.
true. That's true.
But keep in mind that's just my current opinion, my
Yes,
current view.
I hear that.
It
I hear that.
I don't believe that it's true.
Okay. So, let's rewind a little bit. So you started evolving the brain entrainment, and I know I've heard you say that yours is very different than most out there. Can you tell us how it's different?
Well, there's a lot of differences,
Oh,
actually.
okay.
Oh, on a very basic level, most people who've heard of brainwave entrainment have heard of something called binaural beats. I
Mhm.
don't use binaural beats because I find them to be primitive, inaccurate, and pretty much ineffective.
Oh,
They
okay.
serve a couple of purposes. They can help you to become, I guess relaxed, and relaxed is good. There's nothing wrong with relaxed. It can also help diagnose certain brain anomalies if the left half of the brain and the right half of the brain or the hemispheres are not communicating properly. but their overall effectiveness and strength level is pretty tame. It's pretty low. The upper end of a beat would be here. The lower end of the beat would be here. With the beats I use, isochronic and monaural, it's more like that. So there's a much larger effect and difference. I incorporate various systems, technologies, different scripts, different type of speaking. For instance, in a series of mine called Triliminals, which involve a special background that's created using 600 frequencies, most of which are there to act like a mask, to block external noises. But some of them are there to hyperactivate different regions of your brain. They're resonant with different regions of the brain. Then I include a pulse tone in the theta range, like bump, 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 bump. And that elicits a response called LTP, stands for long-term potentiation, or the brain's ability to form neural pathways, memory pathways, that kind of thing. And then I speak to you in the left ear for the right hemisphere and the right ear for the left hemisphere. That's how perception works. Everything on the left side goes to the right. Everything on the right goes to the left. And then again, I speak to you in the center. Yeah,
So
well, that's
you're
it.
speaking words, the person listening can hear those words?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I also have 3 different styles of subliminals that I've invented that were never existing before.
Wow. So anything else about the uniqueness of your...
Oh, there's a ton more, but if I told you I
okay.
had,
But those are the high level parts.
that's one of my technologies that uses about 5 or 6 of my techniques. I'm working on 50 other techniques. Every system I have incorporates a unique proprietary technology or technique that I've designed.
God. Okay.
So there's too many things to get into. And again, I wouldn't want to give away too many of my secrets.
Totally understand. How long until you started to notice changes in your own brain and therefore life?
The very first time I listened.
The very first. And what did you notice?
So I listened to the first recording that I ever invented.
Okay.
And I didn't think anything happened. And then after that, I noticed that first I had the thought saying, oh, nothing happened. I'm going to be depressed all my life.
Oh, yes, yes. I remember that part. Okay.
Right. So, and then I told myself, what did you expect? And when I listened to myself, that was the first time. Because ordinarily, like I said before, that would have taken me into a super depression.
Right.
And then within 5 minutes, I started hearing the voices coming back, which I had never in my life not heard.
So you had 5 minutes free without the voices.
And just one listening, 40 years of this, and one listening gave me those 2 changes. Right away, I knew I was onto something, and I designed my very first system. After that, it took me about 1.5 years to finalize it. And by around the end of that time, I was probably as normal as most other people, like from a depressive standpoint anyway.
That is astounding. So I feel like there's so many people that are struggling with depression, anxiety, and negative self-talk, and all of these different things, and it's probably getting worse because of all the things that are happening in our world. How are you getting your technology out there?
So I have affiliates for the most part.
Okay.
Occasionally I do joint ventures. Keep in mind that I'm giving you my experience. I'm
Right.
not telling you this stuff can do this.
But I'm assuming you have people that have purchased your
I have thousands of
systems with
testimonials.
results, correct?
Right, but I'm not allowed to make medical claims. So I
Right,
don't
of
want
course.
to,
It's for
I don't
entertainment
want
purposes.
to, yeah, it's, the effects are up to you.
Right. And so is there any kind of theme as far as the types of effects that you're hearing back from clients?
You know what? I have so many different types of systems. I have systems for confidence and self-esteem. I have systems for general overall self-help.
Oh, I
I'm
see.
launching right now Mind Trainer Pro, which is a series of peak performance systems
Okay, so
for
you're
like
creating
sales
them.
and business and for pickleball, even tennis and
Oh,
golf
wow.
and all kinds of things. Yeah.
Okay, so you're specializing these systems to deliver a particular outcome, would you say?
They're laser focused, most of them. But
Okay.
keep in mind, in my view at least, the brain is the central processing unit of life. So if we can make the brain more effective and efficient, my theory is that everything that the brain is involved with gets better too. And that's been my experience. Again, I can't medically or scientifically prove it, but I've seen it in so many cases with so many people. Look at it this way. If you exercise, let's say you do sit-ups every day, push-ups every day, you jog for an hour every day,
Okay.
and you lift weights. If you do that for a year, you're going to be able to do more sit-ups, more push-ups, more jogging, etc., right?
Yes.
But you'll also be able to do so many other things that all of those muscle groups are able to do
Mm,
much better, much more efficiently. So
right.
I treat the brain like a muscle. My goal is to help your muscle between your ears get into much better shape.
Mhm.
And now anything that it is capable of doing is likely it's capable of doing it better. That's my philosophy.
That's so cool.
And everything is what the brain is involved in.
Yes.
So I would expect everything to get better. And in
Right.
my life, that certainly is what I can attest to. And, like I said, I have thousands of testimonials. My first product was released in 2007.
Oh, wow. Okay. So quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And so if somebody purchased one that was, let's say, helping them with pickleball, I'm assuming that that's also going to be helping them with other things too, because,
It's up, yeah, but they'd have to identify what it helps them with. The testimonials I get, it's difficult for people to tell what product it's from.
because they're
I have some
listening to
people,
multiples.
well, also because everyone gets, the most important part of my systems isn't anything I do. It's
Okay.
you.
Right.
It's your brain.
Well,
So if
also
your
using
brain
it.
needs something, well,
Right.
yeah, but everybody uses their brain. That whole
No, but
thing,
I'm
the shoulder,
using your tools.
well, the tools help like in a piece of exercise equipment, but only if you
Right.
use them.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So one thing I'd like people to be encouraged to look away from is that classic scene of the iceberg. This
Okay.
much is your consciousness, it's above the water, and this much is your unconscious or subconscious or whatever they want to call it. And it rules your world and blah, blah, blah. I don't agree with any of that. I think it's all a crock.
No kidding.
I
So,
think we have one mind. I don't think we have three minds and they're in competition with each other and they go against each other. It's a load of garbage.
so that's fascinating. So how would you explain beliefs that somebody might be carrying that they're not aware of that somehow are impacting their life? And then at some point they become
Well,
aware of them. How do you
I explain it.
okay.
I'm waving at you with my left hand, right?
Okay.
Making a fist at you with my left hand, correct?
Okay.
I'm pointing at you with my left hand. Did I
Yes.
just show you three different left hands or did I show you one left hand that does multiple things?
Ooh,
That's what your mind is. It's one thing that does multiple things.
fascinating.
When psychology came up with the concept of the subconscious and the unconscious and the conscious mind,
Yeah.
that was a way to differentiate certain traits. In other words, pointing and making a fist and waving. That's all it was. And then it got
Okay.
misinterpreted by a bunch of idiots. Oh, excuse me for saying that.
No
But
judgment.
because the people who believe in it aren't the idiots. The
Right.
people who told them are
Yes.
the idiots in my mind.
Yes.
And they got misinterpreted by these people as being separate entities. They're
Mhm.
not separate entities. They're the same thing, just
Mm.
different aspects of the same thing. At least that's my belief currently.
Right. Right. And so I'm sure you've heard the thought that when we're driving, we're using our subconscious mind instead of our conscious mind. And that's how we end up sometimes in different places that we'd expect. How do you
No, it just
respond
means
to
your
that?
mind is distracted if you
So
miss
it's really
hey,
just about
today I was
distracted
driving.
versus tuned in.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
tuned in, concentrating
Yeah.
on what
Present.
got, yeah, being
Yeah.
present.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
mind. It's not the unconscious. It's like so many times people will drive home and they won't remember getting home.
Yeah.
They drove because it's kind of automatic, right? They've driven
Yes.
so many times or you're riding your bike so many times, you just don't think about it. That isn't the
Muscle memory
unconscious or
kind of
the
a thing, right?
subconscious running the show. That's just a part of your mind running the show. And you're not paying attention to it. That's all.
Really interesting. So, what would you say are the top two things that people misunderstand about the brain? I'm sure there's many.
Top two things. I think they have to answer that question for themselves, actually. I think
Okay.
for everybody it would be different. For me, one of the big misconceptions is that we only use 15% of our brain. That is such a load of garbage. I can't
Okay.
even tell you. Well,
So,
like I said, look at any brain scan. Unless there's
right.
brain damage, all the parts of the brain are lighting up. Of course, you're using all of your brain all of the time. I think what they really mean is we're using 15% of our mind, our
Okay, because I'm
intelligence,
thinking about that
intellectual.
movie. Do you know the movie Lucy with
Yes,
okay, so how does
that's a
that work?
movie. Let's keep in mind that's a
Right, of course
movie,
it's a
right?
movie, but I'm just kind of
So
curious, the theory or the theme of that movie as I remember was she took some kind of substance that allowed her to access more
Well,
parts.
that's a theory, though. That's a theory.
Right. It's a
That's
theory. So you don't think
accessing a
that that's
part. It's
true?
accessing a power. Well, I don't know. How would I know?
Well, I'm
If
just
I could
curious
access
through your
that part, I
experience,
would
have
know.
you
Well,
uncovered
my
anything about
experience,
that?
I've accessed all kinds of powers that I never knew I had. I
Oh,
can
yeah?
manifest things that I never realized I could manifest. Hey, I'm working with people now who are experts and people who I tried to contact 3 years ago and they wouldn't return my emails. They're contacting me now. How do you
Really? So
explain
what
that?
changed?
That's my point. My attitude changed.
Oh, so you
Quantum
think,
physics
okay, so
changed
that's what
my
it was.
life. I started thinking of things differently. When you think of
And
things the
therefore
same way,
acting
you get the
differently.
same results. You
Yes.
end up acting differently. You end up noticing different things. You end up
Yes.
behaving differently. You end up this, you end up that. I used to be called up until a couple of days ago the world's first and only brainwave entrainment engineer. Well, now
And
that
that's
I'm a
what,
fresh start, I'm not using that anymore. Now that I'm having a fresh start with all these new business people that want me to work with them and work
yeah,
for them and things like that,
right.
it's time for a change. Let's change all the clothes, right?
Okay,
So
interesting.
I am the brain wave entrainment expert. That's
Okay, and so you're getting calls from like business owners, corporate people. Who are you
all
finding?
kinds of massive corporations. I had a meeting the other day with a corporation that has business in 75 countries.
Oh my gosh. And what is it that they want you to do?
White label my products for the most part.
White
Because they
label
see the
and let
benefits. They
them
tried
sell
it.
them?
No, well, that's what white labeling is taking something that exists and owned by someone else and then acting as if it's yours.
Oh, so
But
kind of like what
legally
Trader
being
Joe's
allowed to
does.
use. Like who, sorry?
Would it be similar to like what the store Trader Joe's does with the labels that's somebody else's product, but they put their label on it? Is it
Sure.
type of thing? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm assuming based on what I'm hearing, yes. I don't
Okay.
know.
Right.
No,
So anytime that somebody sells a product, so
well, they would
your
have it as
product,
part of their product line and they
okay.
would name
So
it their
so
product.
they want to sell your technology as part of their product line. Is
Yes.
that what you're saying?
That's some of it. I'm also in talks with government agencies. Brazil already uses my work to help train their military police. I've got doctors and
Cool.
clinicians using my work to help in Alzheimer's research and treatment.
Ooh,
So,
that's exciting. Tell me a little bit more about that one.
well, interestingly enough, I got a phone call a number of years ago. Maybe it's hard to say because I live in the now. So I
Okay.
don't really have a concept of time. But some time ago, I got a phone call from a customer of a program I had designed called Revitamind, which I wasn't aware was being sold, but I forgot about the website. I had been paying for it for years and
Oh
not
my
doing anything
gosh.
with it. And she asked for a refund. She actually phoned me up and I said, I don't recall selling anything, but okay, if you bought it and you can show me a receipt, I'm happy to refund you.
Yeah.
But if you don't mind me asking, how did you hear of us? And then she said, well, Dr. Dale Bredesen, the guy who wrote the New York Times bestselling book, and this is how she said it too, by the way. New York Times bestselling book, The End of Alzheimer's, suggested in his book, and it's on his membership website, your program. And I thought, why should
No
I pay
kidding.
for
You
it?
had
So I
no
can get it for
idea?
free. I had no idea. The guy who was webmastering made about $500,000 without telling me because the
Oh my
doctor
God.
had
So all
released the
those
book.
purchases went to him, not you?
I didn't even know there were sales coming.
Oh
It was
my
some crook
word.
from New Zealand. The only way for me to get my website back and all the ownership of everything was to tell him he can keep whatever money. The ideal was he gets paid back his $5,000 that he spent developing the website and everything. And then
Okay.
after that, we're supposed to do a 50-50 split. Well, he didn't tell me about this. And for like 8 months or something, while this book is number one on the New York Times bestseller list and had mentioned one of my recording titles,
Oh,
people were doing
good.
internet searches and whatever, and they were buying it. And he was
And
keeping
he
all the
was
money,
taking all of those
kept it
sales.
all for himself. It was about $500,000.
Oh my gosh. So
But anyway, so what happened was well, she told me this, that it's available for free on the doctor's side. I told her, I said, look, you can recognize the voice, right?
right.
Because some of them are spoken word recordings. She goes, yeah, I know it's you, Morry. And I said, would you be able to get me contact information for them? Because they do not have permission to do this. I never gave them any permission at all.
Right.
And about 20 minutes later, the CFO called me and apologized profusely. And I said, well, apologies are nice, but you've been taking money out of my pocket for like 9 months now.
Mm.
We have to come up with something. And he said, well, give me a few days and I'll reach out to you. So while he's taking a few days to reach out, I had a thought thinking, maybe I can turn this into an advantage instead of getting all pissed off.
Yeah.
So I called him back up and I left him a message and I said, I think I have a way for us to solve this issue and you don't have to pay me a dime. That got him interested.
I bet.
So he got back to me and I suggested something very simple. I said, look, let me interview Dr. Bredesen for half an hour. I ended up interviewing him for almost 2 hours. We had such a good conversation. Let me interview him. Let me use your quotes in the book about neural agility and this video as marketing materials. And you have to put a link up in your members area to my website so people who want to buy it can. Because his protocol called Recode actually suggests if the people are right for it, to buy the product.
Okay. But this time the sales will go to you.
All of it, because it goes to my website.
Right.
So because someone stole
for them to buy it.
Yeah, because someone stole from me,
Right.
I ended up getting tons of credibility.
Wow.
Plus doctors
So
and clinicians.
so even though that guy stole from you, your name and your product was there.
Yeah.
So he wasn't like white labeling it himself.
No.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, I told you about the Brazilian military use it for training the military police. That is a similar situation. A guy in Brazil or Portugal, well, actually, I think it was in Brazil, stole my website, my initial quantum mind power website. And he left my picture up and my name. And he was selling it without, he took the English spoken word parts out so people wouldn't realize it was an English program. He translated the manual and everything into Portuguese. I ended up getting a phone call, which I thought was a joke, from a captain in the Brazilian military through an interpreter. I ended up confirming it really was. And he had bought the program from this guy. And he asked me if I could design a research protocol for him, which I did. And then I said, the only condition I have is that you give me research when you're done. And he said, sure.
Okay.
So we did the research. It proved 7 different measures that they measured. All of them got better. And again, so 2 crooks got me credibility.
So that's wild. So they stole your website, but they also had your technology that they were able to distribute.
Well, because they bought it. You see, now with My Printer Pro and with my newer products, everything is streaming. So when someone cancels their account,
that streaming stops. Oh, okay. So they actually were able to download it and therefore share it.
So they downloaded it and then they uploaded it to a server and they sold it as if it was theirs. Well, actually, they sold it as if it was me.
Yeah, and what's amazing is how you turn that around. I mean,
well, that's what I mean, right?
Embroiled in lawsuits for the rest of your life. One thing I missed, the woman that was calling for her money back, why did she want her money back?
Because she could get it for free on his membership. She was a member of his protocol.
I see.
She saw it was free there. Download it for free here.
Oh my God. And so
why would she pay for it if she can get it for free? I don't blame her. The funny thing is she ended up keeping it. We became friends. He kept it and she said, it's okay, you don't have to pay me back.
So you had patients with Alzheimer's use the technology and improve?
I have testimonials from people, yes.
Okay.
And like you said, the doctor mentions it in his book.
Right.
Because
he used it with people
3 times. Well, he uses it as part of his protocol. And he goes around the world training people in his protocol.
And so now you're getting the sales from that instead of that other guy.
Well, yeah. Plus we have clinicians and doctors all over the place who have been trained in this protocol who get an affiliate commission when they now suggest it to their patients.
Right. That is so cool.
And all of this because 2 people were crooks.
Yeah.
So all I can say is there's always a silver lining, isn't there?
There can be. I mean, I think it depends on how you view things, right? Not everybody would see that as a silver lining. They could just go off the deep end in negativity, but you transformed it, which is pretty spectacular.
The Brazil stuff, I didn't transform at all. It happened all by itself.
Yes, but how you handle
I didn't even know it was being stolen from me until Brazil. Contacted.
But once you knew the way you handled
I still can't do it. He's still selling it.
Oh.
Today, you can go to his website and see my face. Although it's an older picture of me, I have hair. And I don't have a beard.
Oh my God.
But other than that, it's me and it's got my name there and it's, Yeah.
So, any tip that you think people should hear about why this is so important to do this type of work, use these tools?
So we're supposed to be happy all the time. That's why, and don't let anyone tell you you're not supposed to be happy all the time. That
Okay.
is such a crock. There's
Okay.
so many people out there who believe all these so-called truisms,
Yeah.
and they're wrong. And I can prove it to you. Happiness feels good, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Why do you think it feels good? Why do you think being sad or angry or upset feels bad? Because it's telling you you're doing or thinking the wrong thing. That's why you
Exactly.
feel bad. It's trying to inspire you to think the right thing.
Yes.
If
Yes.
you feel good and you're happy, then it's telling you you're doing or thinking the right thing
Yeah.
for you. That's why it's giving you the indication. It's what I call the red light on the dashboard of your life. If you don't pay attention to the red light in your car,
Right.
eventually it's going to cost you a lot of money, maybe a new
Yes.
car.
Right.
If you pay attention to it right away, that's different. Now,
Yes.
maybe 10, 15, $20 later, your car's fine. Everybody's happy again. Imagine if
Yeah.
you broke your leg like severely and it
Mhm.
didn't hurt. If
Hmm.
it didn't hurt, you may not go to a hospital. You may not get it
Oh, right.
set.
You wouldn't take
You
care
may
of
not
it.
get a cast on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, it doesn't hurt. Maybe it gets infected. Maybe you
Mhm.
can't walk properly ever again. Maybe you
Ugh.
can't even walk. Maybe
Mhm.
it creates problems in your back and in your neck and in your brain. All these problems happen. The pain is not a bad thing. The pain is
Exactly.
there
It's
to
a
tell
warning
you
signal.
something is going on. You got to
Yeah.
deal with it, just like happiness or sadness.
Exactly.
Pay attention. Yeah, I believe, and again, I have no scientific evidence to this, but my instinct tells me, my current understanding tells me
Yes.
that if we pay attention to these things and we look back at severe pain and chronic pains and stuff that we have today,
Mhm.
maybe there were a million signs we ignored earlier.
Mm.
And if we hadn't ignored them, I wonder what the difference would be. I was depressed for 40 years. I was self-abusing myself for 40 years. I was damaging myself for 40 years,
Yeah.
right? But what about the rest of you who just are walking around now and you have a little pain in your elbow and you don't really pay attention to it because it's only a
Yeah.
little pain.
Yeah.
Maybe if you pay attention to it today, it won't be a big pain tomorrow.
Exactly. Well,
Just a
that's
thought.
awesome advice to leave with. So I know you have a some kind of a free offering for folks. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, you're going to give them a link and they're going to be able to learn about what I do. But on
Yep.
top of that, you'll be able to download a recording called Digital Coffee.
Ah,
So it
yes.
is a 15-minute approximate recording. There's no words, there's nothing embedded, there's nothing subliminal. It's basically a background noise
Hmm.
that I've designed specially to act as a mask and to hyperactivate different regions of the brain. That's what it's designed to do. And then there's a pulse tone you're going to hear, like ba 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 ba, almost like a very smooth, soft MRI. And that recording is designed to give you kind of like the perks of coffee without
Without the
the
caffeine.
stain, without destroying your keyboard if you spill it, that kind of thing. Yeah, energy.
Right.
A lot of people who use it find they do things or they realize that they're in the middle of doing something that they've been putting off for years. It's like cleaning the attic or spring cleaning. It's spring or almost summer
So
already.
warning, you may be
So,
inspired to clean your house.
yeah. Yeah. Be careful. Don't get mad at me if you find yourself in your attic cleaning up garbage.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Cool. All right. Well, we'll definitely have that link in the show notes. Anything I didn't ask you that you think I should have?
I don't think so. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope other people did too.
Yeah,
The
me
only thing
too.
I'd like to tell people is that happiness is a choice. Truly is.
Agreed.
So just choose to be happy and you'll be surprised at how
Mhm.
powerful that little tweak is.
Right. Because it has a ripple effect.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't really believe in the law of attraction, although I have a recording called The Law of Attraction because clients asked me to make one.
Okay.
I think it's more like observation. You see what you look for.
Yes,
If
yes.
you
Like if
start
you're going to
looking
buy
for
a
good
red
things,
car, you see them everywhere.
we just got a new car about 6 months ago, and I had never seen any of them on the road. All of a sudden, I'm
Yeah.
seeing that
Wild.
model everywhere.
Well, that happened to me when I lived in Massachusetts before I moved to Vermont. I wanted to move to Vermont so badly, and I would drive around and I would see all these Vermont license plates, and I'd be thinking, wow, this is wild. What are all these Vermonters doing here?
Yeah,
It's very cool how that happens. Neat.
it truly is. but it shows that everything's there. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do you explain someone with lots of money and then someone in the same world, same universe, supposedly, that has nothing?
Yeah.
How is that possible? Maybe it's possible because of how they see the world around them. If I see the world around me as a bitchy, terrible place, I will only see the bitchy, terrible things.
Right.
If I look at it as a beautiful place, I will only see
Right.
the beautiful things. You know, look,
Self-fulfilling
everything is designed on us. Every single thing is designed based on us. Computers are designed based on us. Everything is. Even look at Facebook. You get ads that are geared to you. If you
Oh
go
my
to
gosh. Or
YouTube or
just,
some of the news
or
media,
these days, it's almost like you think something and then your phone pops up with an ad.
well, look at the news.
Oh,
If you're way off to the right or way off to the left or centrist or wherever you happen to be,
yeah.
you'll tend to get fed the
The same
stuff that you're
stuff.
searching for,
Totally.
the stuff that you're looking for.
Right.
It's
Right.
all a microcosm of your existence and your reality. You want a
Exactly.
better life? Look for a better life, and that
Yes.
you will see. You will see the opportunity. You still have to take action. We're in a
Yes.
planet where we need to take action, but you will see the opportunity if you are looking for the opportunity. If you are
Right.
looking to be a miserable, you know what?
Yeah.
Congratulations. You manifested that. But
Right.
that's my point. So if
Yes.
you don't want to be that, but you've manifested it, be excited now because you should know that you manifested what you have right now.
Right.
All you
And
need to do is turn the direction a little and you can manifest something much better.
right. And if that feels like it's too hard to do, I would imagine your tools can help people get there faster. Would that be
That's
accurate?
the trick. In my experience, that
Yeah.
would be something someone has to tell me rather than me
Right.
telling
Yeah.
them. But
Right.
yes, I would say that when we alter our chemistry, because our thoughts create brainwave activity, that brainwave
Yes.
activity creates chemistry. It's the chemistry that allows you to perceive the world the way you perceive it.
Right.
Perceive me, perceive, anyone the way
Right.
you perceive them.
Right. I
Weather.
mean, and just the way for 40 years you were kind of stuck in this cycle of thinking, these tools that you created helped you see a different way. Then I
Yeah.
would imagine it built upon that, right?
My belief is what happened is that it altered my chemistry enough that
Yes.
that altered my experience.
Right.
And when my experience started altering, I got really hopeful because up until that point, I never had the experience alteration before.
Right. And what just popped into my mind as you were saying that, I was thinking about all the people that are chemically sensitive who, once they started to detox their food and their homes and, lifestyles, their health transformed. They no longer had all these physical symptoms of
Sure.
illness. Yeah.
Unless you want to talk green, let's finish with a green thought.
Sure.
We're greenifying your brain.
Okay.
We're taking away all the pollutants. Well, now
So
I'm speaking
detoxing the brain in a sense.
esoterically. Yeah, we're in a sense detoxing. We're
Yeah.
getting
I
rid
love
of
it.
all the garbage that's there. All the aluminum, all the
Right.
foil. I mean, not
Not
literally.
literal aluminum, but yes, all
By
the
the
stuff.
way, don't cook with aluminum foil.
Oh, I totally agree with you. And I tell that to people all the time. Yeah.
That's been
Aluminum
related to
foil. And people are doing it constantly with their barbecues and, food touching it. Ugh. And
no,
plastic
definitely.
wrap. Plastic conversation is like a whole podcast in itself. But
But
yeah.
anyway, you can greenify your brain
Yeah, I
and your
love that.
mind. And think about it, you want the world to be pure and green and clean? How about the way you think and the way your brain functions? You combine those two together, and we have Eden on earth.
It starts with us, each one of
Yeah,
us.
it does.
Yeah. Beautiful. What a great conversation, Morry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Green Living Now podcast. If you are feeling inspired to take steps towards a cleaner, healthier, more sustainable lifestyle, don't miss my free guide, 5 Steps to Ditch Everyday Toxins Without Overwhelm. Inside, you'll get simple, practical swaps to clean up your food, home, and habits without falling down a research rabbit hole or second guessing every label. Just head over to greenlivingnow.com or click on the link in the show notes. And if this episode gave you a new insight or fresh perspective, please hit subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to detox their life and feel better naturally. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and stay green.